Hey, look at this. Us being all fancy.
I
And
finally did it.
yeah, Matt has created not only the logo, but he's created an entire, what I think it's called a lower third or Chiron or whatever
Yeah, I was
in the
calling it
biz.
Chiron, but I think the Chiron is the scrolly bit that
Yeah, I think
does
so.
stock tickers and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, at least when I was in college learning about such things, I think we called it the lower third.
Yeah.
Even though it's not quite, that's maybe a third. If you go from here to that's more like a fourth or a fifth. But anyway,
Here, I'm gonna hold on.
all right, I'll be here. So everyone else can listen to me get myself a beer. So does that sound satisfying, everyone? Make you thirsty? Yeah, I wanted to show you this beer, Matt. See if you'd heard of it. It's from Three Floyds. It's in their variety pack. It's called Age of the Otter. Otter
No,
IPA.
I haven't seen that.
Neither had I, but I was very intrigued, obviously. I mean, it even says it's not normal,
Not normal.
but very good. I had one last night. It's, if I could describe it, it's good and dank, but like fruity, but not so much like the citrusy, more on like the juicy pineapple-y kind of end. But
Juicy danky. That
I know.
sounds like an interesting flavor. Because normally it's earthy danky.
Yeah.
What about fruity dank hazy?
Ooh, it's not a hazy. It's just a normal, I guess. I don't know, but tasty. That's all I care about. So,
Tonight I have another Seventh Son
ooh,
because this is their Imperial Stout, which I think is a winter seasonal. Um, so I don't always see it. So I think it's a seasonal, like a half the year seasonal or something.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I found like the Kroger near me. They usually have some kind of craft like variety 12 pack on sale. So I usually rotate between those. Like it's been Three Floyds, it's been Mad Tree, Sierra Nevada. So some good stuff. Well, all right, let's do the thing.
Hi. Welcome to the humanity where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight we are actually going to be merging our little current event segment with just the entire show. Because when me and Matt were talking about things, like I got an idea for like a current events type thing to talk about, but we couldn't think of a general topic. So we're like, let's just make that the topic because it's something I've been kind of wanting to talk about at some point anyway. So yeah,
Oops, I just did a thing.
that's okay. See, it
I
just
have
showed us like
access to controls now. I'll leave him alone. I was like, what does that do? It did a thing that I didn't want, so I won't do the things anymore.
No, see, it just showed us that reminding people you can leave comments. So thank you for that, Matt.
Hmm.
I see what where you were going with that. That's
Yeah,
smart.
it was
Smart.
on purpose. It was smart.
I am smart. SMRT. So, so, as you may see by the title, it's the we just wanted to talk about our friends in the LGBTQIA plus community, their plight, their so-called agenda. So
God, that's
yeah,
such
so
crap.
Matt,
Sorry,
yeah,
that just the agenda thing struck me again.
yeah, it's. I mean, near as I can tell, their agenda is we want to like exist and just be people and do things like people. Yeah,
Yeah.
just be around. But some people just ain't having it
Yeah.
for various reasons.
Should we get right into things or
Yeah, why not?
okay? Because all right, with the yeah, okay. I'll just get this out of my head since I was thinking it with the agenda thing, and then we'll go to maybe a backstory or whatever. The agenda thing is just okay. trans people just want to be people,
Hmm.
and they want to have the same rights. And if the same rights is special rights, then that has like the baked in assumption that trans people should have baseline fewer rights. All
Mm,
right, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
like equal
Baseline.
rights are special rights, then it's sub equal rights. It's kind of like it's Jim Crowy,
A bit, yeah.
so apartheidy.
Parteidy. Yeah.
But yeah, but not at the moment in apartheid.
Right. But things have a
Yeah,
way of.
we'll get into that when I think we talk about like the current news events stuff.
Yeah.
So we were so we were thinking about how do we used to think about queer people?
Yeah. But real quick, showing up my friend Chris, like, see, here's the real agenda. Trans people just want to use the bathroom.
Nope, you gotta use family bathroom. Is the thing. And if there's
Or
no family bathroom, then like pee outside because that's more legal. I don't know.
yeah, just dig your own latrine, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and then uh, use them to piss. I don't know. I don't know how bootstraps work.
Supposed to piss in your boots and then pull them up.
Which reminds me of a fun phrase I heard once. Don't piss on my boot and tell me it's raining.
Oh yeah. We used
Oh,
to
now
we had
this,
urinals in elementary school, like they went all the way to the floor. And so like when there'd be a splashback, it'd be substantial and you get like on your pants and your shoes and
yeah. Now here's maybe a more questionable tactic is taking me to guard the bathroom. Now if I'm the best you can do in a pinch, then sure, but I recommend someone who at least looks like they've seen a gym or heard of, you know,
you can just go, stand back, I've got the cancer. And
yeah,
then they'll say, wait, cancer is contagious? So that would scare me enough if somebody was like, stand back, I have the cancer. I'd be like, well, that's a thing I don't want.
no. See, now I get the fun line of like, oh, I think this looks bad. You should see the other guy. The other guy was cancer, and I'd say to him, but he kind of disappeared. So yeah, fuck off or something.
All the way off.
Mhm. Man, I was actually speaking of that phrase. I remember the first time I actually, in earnest, told someone to fuck off, and it was so egregious. I actually said "fuck all the way off." I was like, "Wow."
Wait, is that on a YouTube thing? Not YouTube, Facebook?
It was in a Facebook group discussion.
Was that one guy? His name I can't remember. He was like one of the two guys that had the same name.
No, it was in a group. Like it was like a deconstruction community group, but this guy didn't seem to understand. He was one of the fun types who would get super fundamentalist about deconstructing. They'd be like, "No, you people are doing it wrong." It's like you don't know what you're talking about. It's like,
Oh yeah, that guy.
and he
Those
and
guys.
he was trying to tell me what I thought and what I really meant by things, and like, yeah, just don't.
You're gonna have to
So,
stop that.
mhm. Yeah. So, and he ended
just
up leaving the group. So,
I just realized if I
so did
tilt.
I. But yeah,
Sorry, I was talking to myself out loud.
it's quite all right. That's what we're here for. This is where we say the quiet things out loud.
Hey, if we use certain products on camera, is Facebook like, hey, that's a thing? Like, that's a probably illegal thing.
Well, that's legal. It's just a water pipe, right?
Sure,
Well, I mean, is that legal in Ohio yet? I mean, I know we voted for it, but I haven't been following.
it is.
Like,
There are restrictions. You can only have a certain amount per month. So if you are somebody who provides that for other people, then you only have that amount on you at a time.
Ah,
uh, and you can grow your own plants now at your home, but
uh,
there's a limit of 12 plants,
hmm.
which is funny because that's rules are exactly what the people who were growing at home are interested in.
Exactly. But
It's
hey,
like,
we
yeah,
got some support, so thank you, Chris.
it's clogged. I gotta heat that thing back up.
Mm, that's what she said.
Yeah, I gotta
So,
press the button. I don't know what that means. Wait, no, I do.
uh, we're the best. So, so was there anything? Because you were talking about, speaking of current events type things, you were talking about the way things are going in some states, particularly here in the OHIO
Yeah.
where we live.
Well, I will say that at least we're not Florida.
Mm, for lots
Um,
of reasons. Hmm.
but it is where a lot of Cincinnatians go for retirement.
Yep.
Um, I did know what was going on in Florida, and I blocked it out because I was sad. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get past this. It's going to keep coming up in the news. So for right now, maybe I'll just not remember the details.
Mm,
uh,
yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately.
so in Ohio, I think what they were, I kind of blocked Ohio out too, but I do remember it had something to do with trans healthcare. They were trying to they're trying to outlaw trans healthcare, um, because conservatives think that trans healthcare means uh, transitioning, like therapy, counseling, drugs, all that. Um, but uh, it also just means healthcare, period. Because my friend Max, who's trans,
Hmm.
she said that um, all kinds of stuff is different when you're taking hormone supplements, or uh, other things. Like illnesses are just different. The potential, like healthcare is just different. Period. So you need a doctor who's familiar, because most doctors are familiar with just male, just female, and actually, nearly all the research is just on males. Like, there's no real information, by the way, on like what side effects drugs will have in the female population only. It's almost exclusively done on men, or it's done like on the backdrop of um, male physiology, even if it's female information that's recorded during the trials and stuff. So yeah, so it makes total sense. Um, if they're already doing a terrible job with like female at birth people, then uh, or cis female, sorry.
Hmm.
Um, my brain doesn't like the word cis because it's CIS, and the two different letters have the same sound in the same word, and it bothers me. It's kind of like scissors, but they're right next to each other, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, they're among the many ways I think the at least the like a English alphabet needs to be adjusted. I think just make the s sound, just give that to the letter S. Just give the k sound to the letter K. So then, like,
Yeah.
oh, then what do we do with the letter C? I say we give C the ch, like ch sound, and you just
Hmm.
get rid of the ch combination, and done, among other things. But anyway, but also just wanted to point out because it's bothering me in my head, just in case. So earlier when you referred to Max as she, like Matt was not misgendering, like Max is a
Correct.
she. She,
Yeah.
yeah,
She or they. Um,
yeah, she or they. Okay.
and for me, it was easier to say they for a while. Now she is fine. From my brain. Part of it is because I'm autistic and I don't like change. Also, part of it was that
Hmm.
uh, like I had known Max when Max was Mike, and and so like for like a few years, so I had like repetition that I wanted and needed to get past, and it was just easier. I was actually like very appreciative. And Max was fine with they pronouns because my brain was more fine with that.
Mm,
And yeah,
yeah.
but
Well, real quick,
yeah,
just thanks from our my British friend Keith. And like, we did do quite a bit to the English language. Fair
we,
enough.
we buggered it up real good.
So I just say let's just keep that energy going and do it some more. No, but streamline it. I
Hmm.
think we have like made it a bit more efficient than some of you Brits. Like we took out that extra U in words like behavior and
Yeah.
color and like.
Well, okay.
But
In our defense, the
yeah.
English language was in like kind of a really awful transition period when it like got codified with the printing press, and so it is just simplifying and getting more efficient. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
At least that's how I like to think of it.
me too. Otherwise, I feel bad for my people.
But I mean, but also in the way I don't really feel bad for messing up because like English just as a language is pretty fucked up as it is. But
So,
yeah.
Ohio, uh,
Mhm.
outlawing trans healthcare or restricting it, whichever one it is, it's probably restricting it first, and then they'll try to outlaw it. The thing is that like because pretty much any regular healthcare can be considered trans healthcare because it's for a trans person. It has the effect of pushing people out of the state, pushing trans people out of the state. Because if you make people feel unwelcome enough, they'll leave. And so it's kind of a default way to create uh, a no trans people state.
Mm. Yeah, and then
Because
you
if you,
didn't force them out. We didn't tell them they had to leave, but yeah.
God, and that's such bullshit. It's Mike Johnson, yeah, the Speaker of the House, is a sinister man. If you've seen, if anybody who watches this has seen Handmaid's Tale, and enough, like if you watch Mike Johnson talk and the things that he says, it's like he's a character on that fucking show. It's he's fascist. He's a religio-fascist. Um, he's only interested in hiding it enough to have his tone sound reasonable. What he's saying is not reasonable,
Yeah.
but his demeanor is very choreographed, very controlled, which is what scares me. He's so repressed in everything he does, the way he moves and talks. I'm like, that man has killed people or will. Like, also, he
Yeah,
has
was it
no.
him that you once told that you told me like the way you described him was like he has the body language of someone who eats people.
Exactly. Yes, it was. I was like, this person is dangerous. Um, shit. What was I was gonna say something else.
Sorry.
Oh, apparently he has no bank accounts.
Huh.
He makes like 100 something thousand a year because that's what they all make
Yeah.
in Congress, uh, which is fine. That's actually not a bad salary for. I'm glad it's not higher. Is my point.
Yeah. I mean,
But then they all do insider trading to make up the difference. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, he's in somebody's pocket. Okay, if you're not tracking transactions for your income at all, with that, like if you don't have a bank account, that means nothing is on the books. So you could have money coming to you personally from anyone, as long as it's like a cash or money order situation or property or. And what he did, what was done recently with Ukraine funding, how they went on vacation without passing the Ukraine weapons funding bill. Ukraine has been hung out to dry, and this plays into Putin's reelection in March perfectly, uh,
Yeah.
because they don't have ammunition that they were promised. The U.S. said, we've got your back indefinitely, and then no, we don't. And they're like, we don't have things to fire at the people. Like, we're in a war. We don't have things to use on
How
the
we
people.
how are we gonna do things to the people without the stuff?
They're just gonna do things to us. Or like, are we about to get overrun by an army that doesn't have helmets? They literally don't have helmets anymore. They have run out of helmets. There's some
Yeah.
trench clearing videos of the Ukrainian army going in, and none of the Russians have helmets. It's like, what? Why? This looks really
And,
bad for everyone involved.
like, I saw Saving Private Ryan. I know how important helmets are.
And those are the helmets they have. They have the steel helmets from World War II. They don't have any Kevlar helmets anymore because Russia. Anyway, back.
Yeah.
I am concerned because Ohio has enough people. That was a hard transition. Ohio has enough people who support anti-trans stuff that things could get definitely worse before it gets better.
Mm.
Um, most people support trans rights, but I don't know if enough people support it enough to stay involved and voting and protesting if necessary,
Yeah.
and the people who are anti queer rights in general are very vocal. They're
Yeah. It tends
they're
to be
not
the
going to
people
last.
who are, yeah, it tends to be, unfortunately, it tends to be, well, depends what the issue is, but in general, I think the people who tend to be against the thing tend to be louder. So
Well, because anger,
sometimes that's good if the thing they're against is bullshit, but not in this case.
fight or flight isn't a calm response. So
Hmm.
if
Yeah. Can they apparently feel threatened by it? Yeah.
okay,
I don't.
yeah. So that also all the misunderstandings of what is actually currently happening. Like people like my mom, I think I, my mom is conservative, but a little hard to nail down with queer rights because we
Hmm.
have like we have gay extended family cousins, um, nieces and nephews for her. So like she is accepting, she is affirming, um, and she's also torn between that and her politics. I think
Hmm.
like she's supportive, but not of like the special rights idea. But in her mind, when she hears special rights, she thinks of like better rights that she has, and,
Yeah.
and like the thing with like there's a lot of conservative people who think that kids are undergoing transition. And that's not the case. And surgeries and all that shit. That's not what's happening. They're having puberty blockers potentially, if anything, but that is a temporary thing. Um, it can become permanent if they want to continue taking them when
Hmm.
they reach whatever age they need to.
Yeah. And that's the key if they want.
Yeah, and then if you stop taking them, you just go through puberty, which can be kind of awful if you're older going through puberty. But like, if that is affirming who you are, then it's not so awful. uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Depends on the person.
so
What you
there's all
think.
kinds of lies
Hmm.
around what's currently happening, and it gets people
Yeah.
to be reactionary. And
Yeah. Because that's, because when it comes to like people call it, words like mutilation or whatever, and say like, oh, they're like cutting parts off of kids and whatever. Like, so first of all, if that is happening, then it's like, yeah, that's bad. But that's what you would want to be against,
so,
not
is that happening?
not, yeah, not just so. But people say, well, because I've found a few like extreme cases where something involving transgenderism is doing a terrible thing that I don't like, and if it is being done, for good reason, not liking it for good reason, not being done for good reason. Yeah, words, I do them sometimes. But if that, so yeah, so they take this like these outlier situations and just say, well, it's happening under this broader umbrella of transgenderism. So now I'm just going to say that I'm just against transgenderism in general because of these individual things. Same things like, sorry, my phone was going off.
How dare you?
Um, I know. Um, but yeah, same thing with like when it comes to like the bathroom situation. People are saying, "Well, I don't want a man walking into the woman's restroom." It's like, well, first of all, it's not a man; it's a trans woman. It's a woman. But that's a thing that could happen anyway. Like a cis man, like could still walk into a woman's restroom, or so. What you're so
Is
again, what
that
you're
is that
against is
even is that technically illegal? I don't know if it is.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see it being like if whatever like store or establishment you're in, yeah, they'd probably just kick you out. But
Well,
yeah, whether that's like a
yeah,
legal thing, I don't know actually. But but yeah, so everybody's like, well, the problem with trans rights is like you'll get stuff like that. Okay, well, no, like the in this case, the problem is someone going into a bathroom that shouldn't be there, not transgenderism in general. And also, the person you don't think belongs there, they actually belong there. That's a woman going in the woman's room, a man going in the men's room, whatever. You just
and
don't see them that way, but that's who they are.
I don't totally get it. I keep remembering Ally McBeal show where they had a co-ed bathroom. There's a
Mhm.
mixed gender bathroom, which feeds into my theory that like the whole show takes place in Ally McBeal's head and it's like a fever dream or something of hers, just because one of the dudes did like a dismount, like in gymnastics, using the top of the stall every time he had a good poop.
Yeah.
But I think it is. I think it's because women fear men. I think that's like kind of the. I think there's some fear that like if there is a man in the woman's restroom, then they are unsafe, and that sucks that those people see men that way. If it's like the attraction thing, like the like sexual attraction thing, there are plenty of gay women who use the women's restroom, and
Yep.
like you can't tell. So um, yeah,
Mhm.
so it's kind of a non-issue, but it's almost like this issue is symbolic. Um, I was gonna say, what's the threat version of a straw man scapegoat? It's a
Ah.
scapegoat scenario.
Mhm.
Like I've been stressed, so and so has been stressed out about all the things that have been happening in society, and this is the final straw. This is their Rubicon that like uh, that's what I think trans rights is the Rubicon for a lot of very conservative people. Like if this is accepted, just their version of life is screwed.
Yeah,
It
because to them, like everything's a slippery slope. But I mean, in a way, like yes,
everything is
everything
a
could
slippery.
be
Yeah.
slope. So so I mean, just as because they always like take it to the extremes, but like only on these specific steps that they don't agree with. So when they say just fucking ridiculous arguments like, well, if we allow gay marriage, then what's going to prevent us from like people marrying their pet rabbit or whatever? It's like, well, when people let straight people marry, what was going to stop it from getting to people marrying rabbits or whatever the fuck you're afraid of? So it's like,
Straight people marry other straight people who are the equivalent of rabbits. So, like, it's maybe if somebody marries an actual rabbit, that's a more fulfilling relationship. Like,
Hey, don't knock it till you try it, I
I
guess.
mean, okay, don't try to have sex with the rabbit, sure, but like,
Yeah, I was about to say unless it's consensual, but I don't know how you get consent from a rabbit, and
no,
I don't want to think about it.
no.
So we'll just go back to my friend Chris making another good point. People don't understand that we just want to pee. Why aren't bathrooms just bathrooms? Like, yes, if you
Yeah,
just
why
make
are the
the
bathrooms a
wall,
weird sexual thing? That's just weird.
yeah, again, I don't want to kink shame, but it's be kind of weird if you like, go into a bathroom to get turned on. It's like it's just people doing their business now.
Wait,
But for
there is something primal about like animals do feel like very vulnerable when they're going to the bathroom. Like if you ever watch a dog poop and they know they're being watched, they're like,
Mhm,
"Mm."
mhm. Like, why is everyone looking? But yeah, I get that part of it. So just make like the bathrooms for anyone, but just have everything in a closed door stall, so you're
Yeah,
still privacy, and so it's like who cares?
that's true. In the women's restroom, it is like everybody goes in their own little cubby. In the men's restroom, you've got urinals, which these days all have dividers. They didn't used to. They used to be
Or
much closer together with no dividers.
some places still have that, like some like stadiums I've gone to,
Yeah.
or they'll just be like some place I still seen like this the big little literal trough that
Yep.
everyone shares along the wall.
But
It's like,
I think one of the urinal etiquette things should be that you like everybody stands equidistant from the wall. Okay, because you get up like especially at a stadium or something, and somebody's been drinking and their like depth perception is off and shit.
mm,
So
yeah,
they stand like more than a few inches further back than everyone else, and so you just feel like they're kind of peeing at you,
mm-hmm,
and
yeah.
that's very stressful.
But yeah, but let's see. Yeah, friend Keith with another good point, reiterating what we were saying. Yeah, the only thing I worry about is the wrong people when my kids use a bathroom. Plenty of cisgender people are wrong ones, and for that reason, I'm always close by if my kids use the bathroom. It's like, yeah, what? So people conflate the two issues of child endangerment with transgender. With first of all, like I've heard, like it's rare if ever like there has actually been a situation that these people are afraid of, like a trans person going into a
I don't think
restroom.
there's any recorded case.
Yeah, but plenty of cases of cis people doing
Yes,
shit like that.
and and
So
part there are this is actually a huge credit to trans people. Well, here, just hear me out. The first part won't sound like a credit to them.
yeah.
Uh, Trans people are abused at a much higher rate, sexually and otherwise, than cisgender people. So yeah, they've been abused more so than the general population, and we are afraid that they're going to abuse other people, but they aren't, and that's the huge credit to them because
Yeah.
often people do. If they've been abused, they will abuse, and that has not been the case. Uh,
Yeah.
so numbers matter, information matters.
Yeah, man. Hmm.
News is not news. All right, even CNN, which is like it's still left but closer to center.
Yeah.
It's not news. It's they tell people what they want to hear in the form of news. And if you look at some like especially independent stuff on YouTube, even like around queer rights in general, um, or anything else, like for example, the Majority Report, which is a liberal infotainment thing on YouTube. Um, I don't always appreciate their takes on like global conflict and geopolitics stuff because I think they don't know what they don't know, um, which I've learned from watching other YouTubers. But like actual good reporting is out there, and it's not on corporate media. It just isn't.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately. Yeah. We're sorry, Walter Cronkite.
no, he actually did his take on the Vietnam War was part of what he did editorialize with his tone stuff about the Vietnam War, which did turn people against it, which was good. Uh, but it was also kind of emotionally slanted. But overall, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when the news was in the
I
news,
was
and they just reported information.
I think I was actually thinking of Edward R. Murrow, but I said Walter Cronkite.
That does sound. I
Yeah.
don't know who that is. Is that a '50s guy? 1950s, '60s?
Yeah. But yeah, it's
That's when the news was like a public service. That's what it
mhm.
was considered.
Yeah, as friend Emily says, yeah, realizing the media is feeding us bullshit is one of the hardest things to wrap my head around as an adult, especially in 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was uh, that was garbage. Hey, good news. I'm being sarcastic. Remember how COVID-19 probably came from a lab in Wuhan?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, when they were doing gain of function research where they take a COVID virus that already exists and they're like, here's a likely mutation, let's make it. So we're
Yeah.
prepared for if it happens. Now, I don't know if this has ever been, that practice has ever paid off, um, but and so it escaped the lab probably and affected people. And guess what else is happening in China right now? They found the COVID variant. I think it was in mice and some other animals, and they're like, all right, here's what's likely to happen with it, and so they tweaked it and grew it, and guess what it does? It has a 100% fatality rate in mice. It attacks their brain, eyes turn white, and they die within a week acting it. And I was like, the fuck you say? Stop it
Yeah.
now. Burn it all.
Good thing
No,
I'm not a mice. I don't
as
know.
soon as you've made something like that that has a 100% death rate, like within a week, burn it all. Burn the whole lab down. Like you've made something that should not survive. Like the danger of maybe a wake of vaccine. It's like you've made something that you don't know what happened in nature. Kill it all.
Mhm. Yeah.
uh,
Now, and again, just something else I just want to make sure I point out because, like, I'm honestly not as familiar with all the stuff you're talking about, but just to be clear, because I know when a lot of people talk about like things like conspiracy theories about it coming out of a Chinese lab, like we're not like COVID deniers. We're not the
yeah,
folks that say like
no,
it's all just a hoax. It's not like no, we both take COVID very seriously. I'm vaccinated. I think you were vaccinated. It's like
yeah,
I wore masks the whole time. It's like yeah.
yeah. My kids were vaccinated. Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
it was real, and
Yeah.
I'm just saying like and we can't. There's no way to prove where it came from.
Mhm.
It is more likely that it came from the lab than it came from animals, just because of where it spread and all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
uh,
like I said, I just wanted to clarify because from what I've heard, I know there is like some stuff to the whole thing coming out of lab, but I just know for me, most of the people I've heard talk about that were in the like conspiracy theorist crowd, and I just wanted to make
and
sure.
that's the problem with getting actual information during 2020, because like everything got sensationalized to whatever slant somebody was coming from. And yeah, one of the first people to get infected with it was a researcher working with the COVID virus that eventually caused all the stuff. And American intelligence, which is often good, especially if we don't hear about it. When we hear about it, like with the Iraq War stuff, with the weapons of mass destruction, I'm like, if they're taking, if they almost never release actual intelligence because it reveals their gathering methods. So if they're releasing what they say is intelligence, it it either isn't or it is and conveniently furthers a narrative they have. So
Hmm.
to accomplish whatever American intelligence wants to accomplish. Um, or it's removed enough from the truth that revealing it does not reveal methods and sources.
Hmm.
Uh, so the fact that they came out behind the scenes and then eventually somebody kind of was like, "Hey, we have this email from American intelligence that says they're confident enough to say it came from a lab."
Hmm. All right. Well, but before we get back to the other subject,
That
just
was a tangent. Sorry, special interest autism.
it's all right. Like, oh, it's not showing his entire comment here for some reason, so I'll just read it. Buddy Key said, "It was real. I worked through it. I saw many people die before my eyes. Like, god damn. But I do think that the response and the lockdowns were incorrect. Now, I can sympathize with that. Like, I think
Yeah,
because it seemed like a lot of people felt like they needed to take like one side or the other. It's like we take it totally seriously, therefore we have to support everything every government's doing to take care of it, or the other side's like, well, I don't like what the government's doing, and therefore you got to go into hoax territory and all that. It's like, but no, I mean, speaking for myself, I'm still a bit of an anarchist at heart, so yeah, I can totally sympathize with not entirely being a fan with like government mandates and like all the things that were done, but yeah, it's a tough situation. I am glad I'm not one of the people that actually had to make decisions
oh yeah,
about
it was,
that.
and
But
it was unprecedented in modern times. So they were,
yeah,
I'm sure they were thinking, let's err on the side of caution, if anything. So history is kind to us overall.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Which I mean, yeah. But no matter which way they went on it, they were going to be vilified by somebody, and yeah. But anyway,
yeah.
speaking
So
of
it's
people being vilified, so
yeah.
why do people have a problem with the gays?
That's all right. Have you noticed that Christians are still very stuck on gay rights and gays? And like I've had some tense conversations with people around I'll say LGBTQ or queer or trans, and they'll say gay. They're way more comfortable. They've finally gotten comfortable with using the word gay in conversation. And
God bless
and
them.
so the trans thing is just like it's just a bridge too far for them. Like they're like, I'm not even. I just got comfortable with gay people. I'm not saying I like them or approve, but like I have accepted they're around. Like,
Yeah. See,
uh,
and Chris concurs. And I will not get Emily started. I promise.
that would be fun. Okay, here's what I. It seems like men
Yeah.
are right,
So for people who don't know, Emily and Chris, who have been in the chat, they are a couple of awesome people.
which I haven't. I've only been in the same room with. No, I've been in the same room with both of you.
Yeah. And
Uh,
you've almost hung out with them lots of times.
yeah.
It's like every time we try to get together, like you or them has to cancel. It's like we're gonna make it happen one or several of these days.
Surprise! We're at your house.
Yep.
So I have a theory about why people are especially bothered by trans people. So and the people who are more like men seem to be more like not violently opposed. Some cases, yes, but uh, more aggressively opposed than women. Women seem to be opposed based on whatever they think is happening with children, or like on a conceptual level. Uh, but men seem to be like aggressively opposed. And what I think it is like they either have or are very worried they're going to find a trans woman attractive. And then they have to be upset with themselves or hate themselves or worried they're gay again with the gay and trans thing.
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a line from
So
Handmaid's Tale. Uh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead and read the quote.
I was just going to say, let's see. Chris says, "Yeah, men are typically more threatened than anything."
Yeah, there's a line from Handmaid's Tale, which I need to start watching again, where Offred, dude, in that show, the handmaids who are like the surrogate uteruses, they're they don't get to keep their names, and they're just called like Offred, like her master of the house or whatever is called Fred, and so her name is just of Fred. I was like,
Mm,
oh, that's sick, but
yeah.
is human history anyway. So the
I would feel
character,
uncomfortable if like I had a spouse and she was just named like of Tommy or
no,
whatever.
it's not the spouse. It's
Oh
because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's yeah. Um,
I
so
still have it.
Offred says, men are afraid women will laugh at them, and women are afraid men will kill them. And I was like,
Ooh.
damn, that's true.
Hmm.
Or the men are like, in this case, I think men are worried that they're laughable. Like, uh, I think a lot of it has to do with being terrified they're going to find a trans woman attractive. And what does it say about them? Probably that they're human and they're attracted to features that look feminine. Like it's like
Mhm.
that's not a problem. It doesn't mean they're gay. If you're a straight cisgendered male and you find feminine features attractive, you're going to find femininely. I lost my words. You're gonna find somebody with feminine features attractive. So like sometimes
Mm.
that could be like a cis male who has feminine features, and you're like,
Yeah.
at first glance, your brain is like, oh, you got the things with the pointy face or the what the narrow and the things and Timothy Chalamet and uh, yeah, and then they're like, oh, I gotta hate that part of me now. I'm like,
Yeah. 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 I mean, people. I mean, like so many things, it just comes down to people fear what they don't understand. Which just that aspect of it. I mean, I get.
or they're fearful to understand too.
Oh yeah, they like afraid of understanding. Yeah, because like that could be for lots of reasons. Like, well, at least like it could be my religion or at least my version of my religion. I assume says that that's wrong. So it doesn't actually say anything about it, but just based on some other
No,
things that another person told me that some things said, then carry
no,
the two and trans bad. But I think but it's just something that a lot of people. I mean, I know like I only just recently in the past few years really started to actually understand like especially like transgenderism because like when I first heard about it, like I honestly was in the thinking of that whole line. Oh, it's just like men pretending to be women or women pretending to be man. It's like because I really didn't understand what was going on, but to me it
yeah,
just seemed weird.
I was thinking
But
Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was still thinking transvestite,
yeah, transvestite, transgender, very
which
different
might be
things.
a slur now, but at the time it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know,
I don't know
but
either.
yeah, because here's the thing, like because obviously, well, I guess should be obviously like that's not what transgenderism is. It's not like a woman just deciding, well, I'm a man now, or vice versa, or they're just pretending, or like. But the thing is, but even if that's what it was, who cares?
Yeah.
Like apparently, Chris can relate with the confusion. My dad asked if transvestite is what I meant when I came out. Like, oh, that's
Yeah.
not what you meant.
Yeah, that's funny that your dad thinks he knows the language and terminology better than you. That's funny. He's like, "Don't you mean?" or "Do you mean?" And as if maybe you misspoke. Like
Yeah.
that, like you hadn't thought, like you hadn't like experienced your way through all of this to get to this point. And he's just like, "Have you considered?"
Like, or I actually know what this word means. You sure it's not that?
Yeah, yeah.
I need I need to be comfortable.
I was just gonna say that's definitely a comfort thing for him.
Yeah.
He's like, here's words that I thought I knew. I thought that I knew and understood.
but yeah, like I just keep coming back to, I mean, because like I said, obviously the way it's caricaturized. I think I got all the syllables in there in the proper order.
Hmm.
Go
I
words.
don't know.
Yeah.
I've had
Thanks,
an
man.
imperial stout and some Skittles, the original Z. So
Ooh.
yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, even if that's what it was, like I do not understand why people who think that's what it is, why they care so damn much and why it bothers them so much. Because I mean, even worse, because that's not actually what it is. I mean, yeah, I think people, because the line that's thrown around a lot is like, well, sex is binary, and it's like that's not, that isn't
No,
even actually true, because
no,
people try to say,
because
well, sex and gender are different things. Like gender can be like more fluid, but sex is definitely binary. It's like no, because I
no.
learned a new word recently,
Oh, what's that?
bi bimodal, not binary, bimodal. That means there's like a whole spectrum, like on the spectrum, something.
I'm on a spectrum.
But this is a different spectrum. This isn't all about
Oh,
you.
I don't know what to do when it's not about me.
Well, but here's the thing: as far as sex goes, you're on that spectrum too, because everybody
Okay.
is, because it's a spectrum. So bimodal just means across the spectrum, there are two areas where most people fall into. So
Hmm.
bimodal meaning like the most. So if you look at it, it's actually kind of like a double bell curve, I guess you could say. So like most people fall into.
It's just funny that we're talking about gender and sex because like you're like it's a so it's like boobs.
Which turns out men and women can have, and
Yeah,
not just because they're Meatloaf and Fight Club. So
yeah, bitch tits Bob.
yeah, so so bimodal, that means like, so most people fall into one of the two, but that doesn't mean that those, but we just in our minds we just like, well, that means those two are normal and everything else is just weird. It's like no, I mean, no, it just means people are complicated.
Yeah,
Plus, in talking about this video again that I've mentioned probably at least two or three times, look it up, Forrest Valkai on YouTube. I think the video is just called "Let's Talk." Here, I'm going to look it up real quick while I'm talking because I have it in my saved videos. But yeah, he's a biologist, so he talks about like the actual science behind like sex and gender, and he says, and it says like how complicated like even just sex actually is. Yeah, it's called a sex and sensibility. Has a picture of him saying, "Let's talk."
that
So yeah,
sounds
look it
very
up.
Victorian.
And he's not, which is awesome. But yeah, he says like there's so many factors because like people want to like boil it down to just like genitals, or if you're Richard Dawkins,
Don't boil the genitals.
please no, or the your chromosomes X and Y. But there are there are still, even though you might say, well, it's a more rare occurrence, but it still happens. Like there are people like who, if you look at them like just by the way their body looks, they totally look like one gender, but
Hmm.
chromosomally they're actually the other one.
Yeah.
I forget what that's called, but like part of me is like I almost really don't care what it's called, because like why do we need to call it a thing? It's just a person. But
Well, right. No, but it's a category of information. That's why they have
yeah,
names.
yeah, it can be helpful, it can not, but yeah, but it's a thing. Like some people are just like that. So and so he says it really the only, so what Forrest in this video, one of the things he says is really the only way for you to actually be able to confidently say where you are on that spectrum, you're going to have something done, like have your entire genome sequenced, like all these other like tests and everything. So basically
Yeah.
what he puts is like no one really knows where exactly on that spectrum you are. Like so really it what it comes down to is what most trans people, gender fluid or whoever, really all they're doing is they're saying, this is how I see myself, this is how I present myself, this is how I want people to see me. That's what it all is, essentially.
Yeah. It's like, no, no, I will see you the way I want to see you. It's like if somebody comes up to you and says their name is Steve and you insist on calling them Bob, like that's
Hmm.
you're just being rude and a little crazy. So
Yeah,
like
or even,
why is somebody comes up to you and says like I'm female or I'm male, what they're saying is like I want to be seen as this because that's how I feel.
mhm,
And and re- and it's just human nature that if you are seen differently than you feel, like and that happens over and over and over again, like
mhm,
you're violating a core need of a human being to be seen as they are, or at least
yeah,
as they know themselves to be, which is not that doesn't include. I'm not saying that's a transgender thing. I'm saying like for people who are
mhm,
dealing with like mental health things, like they want to be seen in a way that accommodates their mental health. I'm not saying that transgender is a mental health thing at all.
no, no.
Uh,
I don't want to
Mental health
connect
is just a thing that I deal with, and
Yeah.
that is a hobby of mine. um,
Which, and this as a side note, again, so for the people who are like just flat out transphobes, like they'll like mock it and make fun of them, but then they'll also say that transgenderism is a mental disorder. So I'm like, so you're mocking people you think have a mental disorder.
yeah, go you.
Like, so you're bragging about being an asshole.
No, gender
Fantastic.
dysphoria is it's a real thing, and that's what
Mhm.
uh, you know. And God, that's got to be horrendous, especially difficult to like see yourself in the mirror and see a different person than you feel on the inside. Like that's got to be like that has to be a terrible thing to go through. And so like anything that adjusts that reality. So where you like where you live as you feel, like as you know yourself to be. That um just you just be who you are. Like that not doing that is that people will off themselves like if they can't be
Yeah,
who they are.
it's serious. Yeah. I mean, because I know just, I mean, I'm not trying to equate the two situations, but just more to say, like, well, people understand it in these certain circumstances, they should
Yeah.
understand it there. So just like how we talked about, like, why we're doing a show like this, like, part of it is like most of my life, I was Christian. You could say I identified as Christian or whatever. But now I want people to know it's like, okay, this is not, I'm realizing that's not really who I am. I don't want you to see me that way anymore. So that's why I'm being vocal about it,
Hmm.
you know. So
And
I've been doing
it's you're just like presenting how you feel also.
Mhm.
You're just like,
Yeah.
I'm
So if
upset about this. And some people are like, you sound angry and bitter. Well, I'm a little angry and bitter. Go fuck yourself.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, they say that like it's unjustified. It's like
yeah.
no, like. But yeah, so I just wanted to go back. Quick comment again by Buddy Keith. Saying like, yeah, we're all on a spectrum, mate. Again, Keith is British. I love the Britishness. You should hear his accent. Like he's like it's a more like I think it's more a little bit more of a Scottish accent, which I'm particularly partial to. But
Oh,
anyway,
he's from Northern England, right?
I don't know. Keith, tell us in the chat where exactly you're from. He told when we first like got to know each other, he referred to himself as a Scot, essentially, or something like that. But anyway, um, yeah, we're taught to pick between two things: goodies and baddies, cowboys and Indians, and so on. Immediately, we judge something to be one of two things, and it's actually very damaging. Yes, absolutely. And now, again, I understand like where this comes from, and I think it's helpful to understand where this come from. Because it's just part of our, evolutionary heritage, if you want to call
Yeah.
it that. But for whatever reason, our brains like to categorize things, and sometimes a binary categorization is more helpful because it's just easy for us to keep track of. But now that we understand that, and we understand that about ourselves, and we understand that the world is actually more complicated than that, then we should be able to learn and adapt and move forward from that.
Yeah. Now, and
Yeah.
like part of the internal conflict that comes from that, um, so like the animal parts of our brain, the ones that have been there like since fish, reptiles, like that processes things in one or the other. Like you need a dichotomy in order to process things, but like the prefrontal cortex can handle spectrums. And so when you're having a fight or flight response, something is only good or bad. Or
Mm.
if you're only processing things on like a knee jerk kind of level, it will be just good or bad. And I think kids in like, cause I've been trying, like I had tried to explain gray areas to Owen in certain ways, and like it just doesn't
Your son,
compute.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, my son Owen, who is 11. When he was younger, like it was good or bad. Like it was one thing or the other. And if you're like, well, it's kind of both, he's just like, it's not a thing.
Yeah, because I remember like one thing I did a lot as a kid, like even like probably well into like around his age and later, like at the end of every day, like I felt like I had to categorize every day as a good day or a bad day.
Yeah,
Like I couldn't just think, well, some good things happened today, some bad things. But like my brain needed to tell me before going to bed, today was a good day or today was a bad day. It's like I had to do the math of however you measure that sort of thing as a 12-year-old. I don't know,
yeah.
but I made it work ish. But I see Keith answered here. He's from Manchester, which is in the north of England. Y'all need to come. I'd love to. But if you're telling me the weather's like Ohio, I'm slightly less interested. But
Well,
no, seriously.
when you say wet, do you mean humid? Because in Cincinnati, we're like we're like northern jungle in the summer here.
Yeah, it's jungle without all the fun exotic parts.
Oh, that
Yeah,
reminds me.
definitely love to come out there and visit sometime. That'd be awesome.
No, that would be. Uh, I do like. I think I like Northern England, and or I can relate to people from Northern England, Scotland, and Ireland. Because I've got a lot of Irish uh,
Hmm.
and Northern European like Vikings in
Hmm.
my heritage. So the people kind of speak to me.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Same with
like with
me.
the
Like, yeah.
I'll just say with the Ohio healthcare stuff, trans stuff. We don't, there's nobody like if you're in the western like southwestern part of Ohio, and if you're trans and you need to go get health care, and if it becomes illegal in Ohio, then like where are you going to go, Indiana or Kentucky? Fuck, if they don't end up banning things before Ohio, then like I I don't know what's up anymore. Like it's just because of the way the two states work compared to Ohio. There just wouldn't be anywhere to go, and like you'd have to go like 2 states away for certain healthcare.
Yeah.
And
I mean, honestly, like with Kentucky, I just part of me is honestly just impressed that that if they even understand what transgenderism is. But
no, they still call them the gays.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
yeah. Like I said, if they would, I'd. But okay, maybe that's slightly hypocritical of me being a bigot about their bigotry. But I also kind of don't give a fuck.
Whatever.
So
Kentucky's basically a write off for the United States. It's like a tax write off. It's just like whatever. Just they're not even a state. They're called a commonwealth.
but to go back to like, just wanted to highlight another strategy as far as explaining the transgenderism to people. As Emily says, like she later clarified that's my mom told Chris, boyfriend, to tell dumb people his penis just fell off and let them figure it out on their own. I mean, do what you got to do. It's
Well, I don't know if you have to explain where genitals went or didn't go, then I feel like that conversation already went somewhere it didn't need to.
yeah,
Maybe that's just my
yeah,
opinion, but I that is funny though.
yeah.
It's very funny to just like jump to that statement when somebody's like, "Are you trans?" You're like, "Yeah, my penis fell off." Like,
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, and back up. You don't want to catch my cancer. It's like all kinds of things we're learning. You can say in conversations that you're not enjoying the direction of. So here in the humanity, we learn how to people. Hmm.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, apparently, that's the first thing people have the audacity to talk about. Well, fuck people.
No, that is. I think they need to be. I would love to explain to them how weird it is that that's like one of like that's anywhere near the top of the list to talk about.
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah,
just the objectification of trans people to like talk about them. The only other animal whose genitals that you talk about like that are like pets, like livestock. Like it's
yeah,
fine
things
to
that.
talk about their genitals because they're just animals. So like if you're jumping there, then
Mhm.
in that person's mind, like they
Yeah,
must be equating trans people to animals or something.
yeah,
Subhuman.
yeah. It's like, I mean, if you ask something like this, and like, do you ask that to straight people?
Dude, straight people have sex all kinds of ways. Like
Mhm. And I don't really care how they do,
no, I would turn it back around and say, well, how do
unless they're
you sex? You
voluntary
answer first,
producing.
bitch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or as Keith says here, like, or or sorry, Chris, I clicked on the wrong one. But yeah, that's unfortunate. It's like, yeah,
That's I wish I could I want to
like,
come up with like an amazing response that just like makes people feel terrible for asking. Like,
yeah. But as Keith says, like, yes, Keith, you are correct. It is absolutely none of their business. So yeah, which, by the way, also appreciating all the interaction in the comments tonight. We've been missing
yeah.
that for a few weeks. Been wondering where y'all went, but I saw people were watching still. But
that's good.
yeah, yeah, but but yeah, yeah. Why?
It's like, what do you do with your genitals? You tell me first. Like, oh, are
Yeah,
you
or
uncomfortable? Isn't that funny?
I mean, or Emily would suggest you could just ask them about theirs, which is also
Yeah.
I like it. I'm gonna start. You know what? I'm just gonna start going around asking straight couples like how they have sex.
All right, Sir
Ask if
Sir
they
Six response
and
when
ask if they have an OnlyFans. What?
so Sir Sick on YouTube when somebody goes some condescending prick in a Christian apologetics video goes, think about it. And he responds, you first, dipshit.
That's my favorite. Yeah, or like the flat earthers or
So when somebody goes like, how do you even have sex? And he's like, you first, asshole.
or Keith, here I'll show you, and you could say and get remarkably close. Like that's fantastic. I love it. We're getting all kinds of great ideas from the crowd tonight. I love it.
uh, I just I feel like there needs to be like more like aggressively sarcastic protest, like spur of the moment when people just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like if people are gonna say dipshit things that are just like rude, mean, condescending, or whatever, just I'm not saying like get like not like it doesn't have to be civil or uncivil. Like you could just what you're saying is absurd. I'm going to respond in a sarcastically absurd way that editorializes on what you said. Like
I can be down with that. Yeah.
so just like laughing at people like that quote like men are afraid women are going to laugh at them and like the most emasculating thing that Alfred does to Fred one time is like he like rages at her or something because she I don't know was a person and
I mean, seriously,
and
how dare she?
and he says some shit and like threatens her and she just like gives him this smile and just kind of laughs at him and then he kind of beats the crap out of her but then she smacks him back. It was great. um but that's like that's a completely disarming and like if somebody is not being funny like in their mind and you just laugh at them like this is absurd and then you just walk away or something Like, like what? I'm not even. That's like a non-response. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't fight back. Like you just
Hmm.
were like, "This is some bullshit," and they're like, "Well, I'm just gonna convey that," and
Yeah. So
it,
it's literally laughable. Yeah.
that wouldn't work every time. Sometimes people did
Yeah.
need to defend themselves. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
like
Some situations, yeah, I think might call for a more serious response.
right,
Absolutely. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of times where, yeah, just laughing at the person probably do the trick. So,
yeah,
but yeah. But yeah, so something else that people seem to get all the upset about is they'll complain about, they'll call them, the LGBTQIA plus community. They'll call them things like the condescendingly call them things like the letter people, or they'll keep complaining like, oh, they keep adding letters to it, and like it's so hard to keep track of. Like, so the way I like to put it is, okay, every letter there represents a group of people that is being mistreated. So if you're tired of letters being added to it, maybe stop mistreating so many people.
yeah. And they're like, Why do they need a letter? It's like, why can't they just be people? It's like, well, they need a letter because they weren't being treated like people.
Yeah, why don't you just fucking treat them like people? Then they can just be people. Because that's, I mean, from what I understand, that's all they actually want. Like when we talk about like their agenda, it's like Chris said, like we just want to use the bathroom, or we just want to be in love with someone, we just want to get married, we just want to be represented in media just like everyone else is. It's like it's the same thing with the whole like how people responded to Black Lives Matter by saying, well, all lives matter. It's like, yes, true, all lives matter,
And
but the
that's a
problem
dismissive
is,
statement.
right, but the problem is, in order to get all lives to the status of mattering, some are needing some more help right now. So
And the
that's
reason why
why,
people are saying Black Lives Matter is because Black lives haven't mattered enough.
right.
Like statistically, it's just a thing. If you just look at the numbers, it's a thing. Doesn't matter if you think it hasn't been. Just look at what's real. It has been.
Yeah. Or speaking of how you can respond to people, like, because a lot of time these crowds tend to intersect. Obviously, it's not exclusively both, but yeah, a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram. But like a lot of these people, the same who insist on saying Merry Christmas, is like, okay, we'll just respond with all holidays matter. See how they like that.
Oh, that would get so mad.
Uh,
You're like,
yep.
what? If all lives matter, all holidays matter. Come on, fair is fair.
But apparently they don't. So, but Christianity is under attack because yeah.
It's the majority faith in the country. How can it be under attack? How can you have the most power in the country and be the victim? Kind of sounds like you're fucking yourself over.
Yeah, right. As Chris says, I always say all countries matter on 4th of July.
I used to
I
like
like
the
it.
bumper sticker. God bless everyone, no exceptions. Like, or God bless all countries, no exceptions. That was after the 9/11 stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how long is that bumper sticker going to last? But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like, I completely approve and agree.
Yeah. I mean, because if you're going to believe in God, might as well believe in God for everybody. Yeah.
No, but only the chosen people, which is how you
That's
get
right.
the war in Gaza. Dude, something I don't want to get super into it, but there's something that I haven't been able to
That's good.
process that I saw on the news. There are like conservative Orthodox Jewish people, Israelites who are
Yeah. Keep talking. I'm just getting another beer.
okay. They're blocking aid into Gaza, like food and fuel to keep people alive and treated in hospitals. And regular people are blocking the road because they say that's going to be they say it's going to be diverted to Hamas. Now, there's no proof that like any quantity of that would matter has been diverted to Hamas. Some of it probably has been, but they like UNRWA tracks the UN like aid organization. They track everything. They have a paperwork system, and so like it's actually hard for something to go missing. Sometimes it does, but like the actual information, it's a very like low percentage. And this is stuff that will keep civilians alive and keep civilians treated in hospitals and like keep their lives being saved. And regular Israelites are blocking it because they are convinced it's going to be diverted to Hamas. And I'm like, even if some of it is, most of it is going to civilians who will otherwise die of starvation. Like 1 in 4 Gazans left in Gaza right now are at risk of dying from starvation, 25%. And Israel is trying to push them into Egypt. And what's on the other side of the border in Egypt? A fucking desert that no one, not even the Israelites, even though the Bible says they were there, weren't there. Nobody lives there or can live there long term. And that's where Israel's trying to push them. They're attacking the city where Israel told them to go to be safe. Like in March on Ramadan, awesome day. That's the deadline for attacking them. The start of Ramadan is the deadline for when Israel is going to start attacking and pushing them all out of the area they told them to go to be safe. Like, I can't process this, and I can't do anything about it other than tell my congressman just stop giving Israel weapons until they stop using them on a specific people group. Like,
yeah, because this is something like you brought up with me a lot, and like and I say I enjoy learning more about it, but I mean I like learning, but I don't like what I'm learning.
no,
But
it's
we were
messed up.
talking because this was one of the things we were talking about, potentially talking about on like for tonight, but it's one of the things like I care about it, but like I don't. The way I put it is like I don't know how to care. It
No,
just
it's
seems so. I mean, like so many things. So, I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, whatever I think about it, grand scheme of things, doesn't really make a difference. So it's like my brain just, it just doesn't want to deal with it. So, yeah.
no, and I actually can't
And I'm
talk
in a
about it very long
now I'm in
because
a very privileged position, obviously, to be able to say that. But
yeah, no, I
yeah,
like I'm not saying there's a good guy and a bad guy in this situation. There
yeah,
are wrong things to do for sure, but like both sides in the situation, in the current situation, have had bad actors. Uh, Historically, you can say that like one people group has uh, been on the delivering end in that region from bad actors more than another. Uh, Again, it's hard to play the victim when you're in power. So for Israel to play the victim when
mhm,
like there was the 6 Day War, they came out on top in a substantial way. So somebody like several countries, several Arab countries around them tried to attack them. They like somebody tried to make them the victim, and they weren't, and they came out on top. And since then, they've been a potential victim, but like actual victims in Israel are not getting the same consideration. It's
yeah,
I'm very much of the mindset right now that like there are not good guys and there are not bad guys. If you want to like shorten like the window you're looking at, sure, there could be good guys, bad guys in that window, but you open that window up further, the time or
yeah,
just the quantity of people you're looking at, and there's no good guys, no bad guys.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think as we've said it before, and I remember when I was on Jimmy Liggins show. And we were talking about this. Like what we both said was like, if I side with anyone in the situation, it's the civilians on both sides who are just being caught in the middle.
Oh yeah, no, because it's
That,
the militant
that
wing of Hamas that's
mhm.
causing problems, and it's the ultra nationalist, ultra conservative um, types in Israel, which unfortunately has become, for a bunch of reasons, that viewpoint has become more mainstream. But still, it's
Yeah.
Netanyahu who doesn't want. He doesn't want. If he's out of power, he will go to prison for corruption charges. Like it's pretty much for sure. And people want him in power as long as the war is going on. So lots of people got to suffer
Yeah.
because dickhead in charge. That's
Yeah.
actually how a lot of it goes in trans rights too.
Yeah.
Lots of hard left transitions.
Real quick, I want to like make a real swerve back a little bit. Emily made a very nice, appealing offer here. Like, let's have beer and chat about this one. Love to
Yeah,
actually sometime. Yeah, especially hearing your experience and being able to talk to a man that lives in Gaza. That definitely be some cool perspective to have. So
yeah,
yeah,
and it's
yeah, and as Keith says, yeah, it's civilians and innocent to pay the price for. Yeah,
yep, that's who fights in him.
yeah,
I think the president that decides we should go to war too.
yeah. You remember like back in the old days, like the
Yeah,
kings, like they would
yeah,
be
that
out.
made more sense. Put your own
Yeah,
skin on the line. Like you put your own skin in the game.
it's actually
Then
even like literally biblical. Like all the kings of Israel, they'd be the ones like going out to war, and when they didn't, that's like when David didn't. That's when he got in trouble with the whole like Bathsheba thing, and
yeah,
so
like the president would be like, I don't want that'd be dangerous. I don't want to. I could die. And like exactly. Maybe we should rethink this whole thing.
yeah,
No, it has been democracy now. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. It's a NPR radio program, but they also have a YouTube channel. Democracy Now does their coverage is left leaning, but for things like if that's not your thing, like I get it, but they've managed to get in contact with people who are in Gaza, and so their information from Palestinian reporters has been extremely helpful, and it's kind of like the only place that I've been able to routinely find it online that doesn't come across like propaganda. There are some
mm,
other Palestinian reporting outlets that I found, but at times it feels really highly edited or propagandish. Uh, it happens. I just
yeah, yeah. So back to our previous hard left turn. So how? So kind of like tying this into one of the larger themes with the show, like how have our views on LGBTQIA plus such matters changed as it pertains to like how our faiths and beliefs have changed? Because I remember, or I should say, I don't actually remember when the switch happened in my brain, particularly on like the like homosexual issue, because this actually happened while I think both of us still like considered ourselves Christian, but like we had already been
yeah
like heavily deconstructing. And because I remember going into deconstruction, I was still in the mindset of like, well, I still consider homosexuality a sin, but I mean, obviously, I had gay friends at the time, still do, and but I was like, I still think it's wrong, but I mean, I did the whole thing. Oh, but I'm a sinner too, so I can't hold this against them, as if that's not condescending. But
and it's a
but
kind of a category error also.
yeah, a bit. But then after going through deconstruction, like I remember like through months later, it's like the issue wasn't even something I necessarily even thought about while I was deconstructing, but I remember I think it was at Oktoberfest where a lot of our important conversations happened.
Good times there.
Yeah. I remember we like, oh yeah, that's my water cup
Tell you what, we
today.
got to go back to the hip hop tent for
Yeah,
longer
that.
next time. That was some good times.
Mhm. Yeah. Um but I remember like we were talking about it. It was almost like we had deconstructed from the idea that homosexuality was wrong without even realizing it. I remember we both got to the point where we're like, we don't see a reason for seeing it as wrong, but like we didn't necessarily consciously get there. We were just both like,
Yeah,
yeah, that doesn't make sense that that's wrong. But
yeah, and it's kind of around
yeah,
that time where like I started realizing that like the whole faith thing, it just categories. It was more like realizing where you are instead of deciding what you are.
mm,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
like I became a Christian because I realized I already was one, and then
Yeah,
like
and the same with
eh,
atheism for me,
yeah,
at least.
it was more like, oh, that already happened.
Because that's another conversation we had. I remember. I don't remember what exactly we were talking about, but it was something along the lines of various like theories or evidences about theories for God or whatever, and what we thought of all those. And we're like, I don't really find that convincing. I don't find that convincing. And I think it was you who said it. And you just like, so are we atheists? And
Yeah, I said that.
I was like, maybe. I think so, possibly. But yeah, it was. Yeah, like you said, it's just a. I think the best sort of aha moments in life is when like you're realizing something that was already there before you knew it.
Yeah,
Not the actual change itself, but the kind of realizing in retrospect that the change already happened and now you're catching up with your own change. And it's
that's
fun the
why.
way our own minds work. Like
That's why I decided to start dating my wife again before after I'd already broken up with her once. It's because I was yeah I was somewhere and saw this like amazing like thing on a hike, and I was like, oh, the only person that I would want here right now who isn't here is Aaron. And I'm like,
mm.
and I was like, yeah, we're gonna get married, and I was like, I'm not ready for that idea.
But you were
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, real quick one like Buddy Keith makes a good point here. 5 passages in the Bible appear to condemn same-sex relationships. Now again, like I'm not going to, especially now that I guess I'm an outsider, I'm not going to get into the whole, I'm not going to tell Christians what their Bible says one way or the other. I could see how people make the argument saying it does condemn homosexuality. I could see the arguments from people saying it doesn't actually. I don't really care,
But the
but
word
yeah,
homosexual did not appear in a translation until around 1950s or so.
yeah, the 40s or 50s, yeah. Because also back then, like that's
There
really
was
kind of
not a word that meant that.
yeah, they didn't really have the same concept of like what's the word?
Sexuality, relationships.
Sexuality, yeah, just yeah, like homosexuality, yeah, at least as we think of it today, wasn't really a concept. Yeah, and then Emily makes a good point here. There are more than 5 passages that do support abortion, yet they
Oh, for
don't
sure.
those.
In fact, like God saying like it's passages saying that God aborted babies, or that like
Mhm.
we should put a link sometime. Dark Matter 2525 on YouTube has an excellent video about God and abortion, and some funny and disturbing graphics that like the amount of children that God has killed, the amount of babies that God has aborted, uh, dwarfs the amount of babies that people have aborted. Like God has straight up killed like post birth babies according to the
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I've put it before is like, so in reading the Bible, how do you tell if God or Satan is the bad guy? Certainly not by how many babies they killed.
No, no, because yeah,
And
yeah,
even
Satan
just in
didn't kill
general,
any
in
babies
the Bible, like you can make the argument that Satan actually never killed anyone because people talk about the story of Job, but in
or
Job,
lied or lied, even lied.
yeah, he's called the father of lies, but I think he was the only person who was honest in like the whole story of the fall. But yeah,
Now,
but so people point to Job as far as like Satan killing people, but that's more like it's the character of Satan or the Satan. It literally just means the accuser. Like that, the character in that story is not the same as what we think of as Satan. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
In that verse where Jesus calls your father's father of lies and all that, um, he's talking to Pharisees, and so right,
mm-hmm.
and so like the assumption is that he's talking to the God of the Pharisees, which would be the Old Testament God. And so in that verse, like
Mm-hmm.
a likely translation would be that like Jesus is calling the God of the Old Testament Satan and the father of lies.
So basically, Jesus was a Marcionite, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. No, Marcion he got really weird, and he was like, "Oh, is that the Demiurge guy?"
I think so, yeah.
Which is a great song.
Or was that Gnosticism? But yeah,
Yeah,
are you talking about the song by Meshuggah?
yeah, great song by
Yeah,
Meshuggah.
we saw that live, which was
Oh, it was an
amazing.
experience. I'll tell you what, worship bands and church services and all the Holy Spirit stuff like that, a Meshuggah concert. Oh my goodness, they're just
Yeah,
like, here's enough sound to make you feel like you're drowning.
exactly. And I was apparently my reactions to it were intriguing slash making people around me uncomfortable. I'm not sure which, but
No, the girl to your left was looking at you more than her boyfriend, but she was looking at you like she was intrigued and concerned. And
that's
so,
what I go for, honestly.
yeah, you were
But
almost headbanging the floor. Like,
yeah, that's one thing. People who like know me in real life, because I tend to be like pretty introverted, pretty like low key. But like if you get me around music like that, I am like really into. I like completely different person. Like the way I put it is music is how I feel. Like not that it describes how I feel. Like no, but I literally feel with music. That is my mechanism for feeling, and I love it so much. So,
yeah.
but yeah, also shout out to this to my friend Emily. Started a lot of shit in Lebanon. So if people don't know Lebanon, Ohio, it's
Oh no, did you really? Where'd you do that?
in Lebanon. But
That was
yeah,
it. Was
for
it at a
people,
pro life rally? Because that would have been so baller.
but yeah, Lebanon, Ohio. How would you describe Lebanon, Ohio, for the people who are not familiar with the area? It's kind of rural. Like
I
it's not exactly blue territory, I
was like,
guess.
picture corn and white, and and a quaint little town.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Keith replied, "Legend."
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome. If you were a dude, you would have gotten beat up. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, just saying Lebanon.
Yeah, but yeah. So
Lebanon
anyway,
strikes me as very friendly if you're their kind of people.
yes. Ooh.
So Christians.
Ooh, so here I get a little factoid about Lebanon. It was the first sanctuary in Ohio to ban all abortion.
How do you even ban something that's legal in the state? That's bullshit.
And that's like the opposite of a sanctuary. Like, I don't think you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
There's a known amount of miscarriages, roughly, but there's an unknown amount of miscarriages that happen that like women
We were
just.
fighting.
Yep. There's an unknown number of miscarriages that happen that women just kind of see as like a slightly late period or something.
Hmm.
Uh, so if you want to say that's God, I say it's nature. But if you want to say it's God, then God is aborting like untold numbers of children in that
Yeah.
mindset. So, or from that perspective, so like you're picking sides. So they're like, not every fetus will be carried to term. Like not every fetus becomes a fetus. Sometimes it doesn't get
Yeah.
past zygote or something. So uh,
Mhm.
just the assumption that before a human is born, like saving that part of the process, which you don't even know will result in a birthed human, saying that that needs to be protected more than the person that you know is already alive, the mother, like is so messed up. And I honestly don't understand where you're like, I don't know how I ever thought abortion was wrong per the Bible in my past. Like,
Yeah. Speaking of things that we
I
both
don't
had
get
like
it.
a huge shift on. Yeah.
No, and I went to a pro life rally, held up a fucking sign, and I'm like, and I remember being there, and it was, I don't know, like the Chain Across America or some shit. I remember it was like a big thing. Um, and we're holding up signs pre-printed by some, I don't know, corporate donation from somebody. And I'm holding up a sign, and I'm thinking to myself, if somebody's, we were downtown because that's where all the suburban people go to make a difference.
Mhm.
Um, and
Or
I was thinking,
the
like, if
chief.
somebody drives by who's had an abortion, like, and they have to drive through this gauntlet of shame, like, this is mean. And I didn't
Mhm.
leave. I I regret that after having that thought and not leaving.
Huh.
Granted,
Well, but I
I
mean,
came in somebody else's car, but I didn't. I could have sat down, and not held up a sign. Like,
yeah. I mean, but I mean, honestly, I mean, it's all about perspective. I mean, even having that thought, that was big. But I just want to shout out to actually, like, friend Emily. I actually went in front of town council and told them about me
oh
choosing
shit,
me when I had my abortion. I was raped at 15. I chose my future. That council sat there and voted to uphold their sanctuary. It's like, this is for you. That's for them.
I want to cry. That's just wrong. I I don't get how somebody can put principles above a person without questioning the principles and saying maybe my principles are wrong. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. First experience the process at 15, dealing with that shit. Wow. Told you you were a
what?
monster.
Well,
Fuck them.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you. I was gonna say you're awesome, and I still think that, and I realize how trite that is to say that because it doesn't convey like the strength of you as a person to say that now, like to be in a place where you're here saying that now, and it didn't crush you at 15. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to hurt all of them that said that. Like, just like they should not have driven home that night. Their tires should have been popped at least. Like life should have been harder for them after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think you can be pro humanity in general by, or this is probably a controversial statement, but I think you can be pro humanity in general by being anti some individual humans.
Oh yeah, yeah, a threat to this species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's because,
Look,
people talk
look.
about,
All right. LGBTQ people are adopting at a greater rate than anybody else. Okay,
yeah.
like not a threat to this species. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I actually, just in my own personal life, it's not adoption, but like, because people say, like, I think it was Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh, and I
oh
don't really care which one because
God,
fuck both of them.
one
One
should
of them,
just fuck the other in the ass and get it over with. Just
they clearly want to.
Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is the giver. No, he's the taker. He's the taker. Yeah.
That's
Matt,
true.
Matt Walsh is
But
the bottom.
yeah, the thing is, I'm a little torn, only slightly torn on Matt Walsh because he wrote
Are
this one
you?
article because he wrote one article about introversion,
Hmm.
which is I think one of the best things I've ever heard about introversion. It was actually really good, but like
Okay, it was like very
vast
accepting and
majority of everything else he ever said is absolute bullshit. But anyway,
yeah.
it was one of them. I can't remember which. I think it was Walsh talking about like the idea of like gay couples like either like having their own kids or adopting kids. He literally said it's better for a child to grow up without one of their arms than without having their mom and dad.
Really? Yeah,
He
try that.
really
See how you feel. Like
it, like
that's
the, the
repulsive.
the things that my mind is minding because in my own personal life, I like the example of there were these twin girls that went to my kids' school, and they had two moms. Not only were they, like these two moms like two of the best parents and like just most awesome people, but also these two little girls were like two of like if anyone who had daughters like and you had daughters like them, it's like this is what you would want them to be like. To the point where I mean, I won't go into too many details, but I will say like I know like one of them, like my son, like there was I guess some like classroom drama with them, and my son ended up saying some rather unkind things, like rather hurtful things to one of the girls. It was like resolved. They were like, "Hey, like we got over it. Everyone made up." But then later, when my son was like getting bullied, this girl like came to his defense. I was like, "That's what you want in a kid."
Hmm.
And she
Yeah.
has two moms. So if you want to tell me that that's like they're better off without their arm, like fuck you. That's all I got.
I think humanity. Haha. That's the name of the podcast. I think humanity is better when people are themselves, and um, easily some of my favorite people, like just in general, like queer people are like easily my favorite people because like my secular faith thing now is like being myself like as much as possible, and then if something isn't me that I discover like be myself instead, and that is what queer people who are out
Mhm.
are all about, is being themselves. And
Yeah.
that that's how we're going to move forward, just as a people, as a country. It is like everybody's strengths, weaknesses, like who they are really, putting all that out there and into practice. uh, we can only move forward faster. We can only be a more functional society. Like if people who are dickheads, fine, be a dickhead. Just I.
Understand the
But
consequences of that. Yeah.
yeah, and know that you're being a dickhead. And are you comfortable with that? If you're not, change who you are. And if you are comfortable with that, you aren't going to change anyway. So like now everything's balanced. Like, and there's no
Yeah.
pretense. Like you're just going to show up somewhere, be an asshole. People be like, oh, he's the asshole here.
That's his
Yep.
role. Yeah. So that's why I said I think like I said last week or whenever it was. I think really more than atheism, I think what's really kind of underpinning most of my general life philosophy, like you could probably just call it nihilism. Because I think where that plays into this is because people will try to say, well, it's clearly they're supposed to be like two genders, male and
Oh,
female,
clearly, just because
and
of
then
genitals.
and then they're supposed to be the ones who are parents because like clearly they were whether you want to call it designed or whatever like because even if you're not like a design proponent you still might argue well just like biologically speaking this is clearly what works best. It's like not if you don't care about that aspect of it. I mean
No,
not if you're just like
I'll say that it is like binary roles, and I'm not saying like gender specific, because people like to say like in prehistoric times, or like aboriginal times, like in America or wherever, that there were societal norms where like the women did the whatever and the men did the whatever. That's not really the case. Like Native American societies, a lot of tribes, like if you were a man and you weren't gonna be a good warrior, like then you would stay home. Like you would do something that like you were good at.
It would have been me.
But in a society that's focused on survival, and survival is difficult, uh, the people with body types geared towards hunting and defending are going to end up with those roles, and the people with body types for doing something else, like, and if you have a uterus, you're going to give birth just because like only people with uteruses can do that.
Yeah.
But like when you move past like that survival phase where survival is not a foregone conclusion, um, then things open up more than they,
Hmm.
not that they were completely restricted before, but now things open up more. That doesn't mean that like this is bad. It just means that like survival is easier. And
Yeah.
like just because you can crush skulls doesn't mean you need to anymore or should. Like
Yeah, I mean, this is the benefit of, if you want to call it advancing or whatever, but this is just the benefit of being where we are. Like we don't need, like, even if you would argue in the past that we needed these like more traditional like binary set roles, like okay, well we don't need that anymore. So
yeah.
why try to hold on to that? And I understand why, because again, that's just part of how a lot of our brains work. But yeah, like you said, just look at how it's actually affecting the people over what you think the principle should be, or what you think the principle is, or that you think there even is a principle.
Something great to come back to, I think is great for Christians, is the fruit of the spirit, um, because you combine the fruit of the spirit with the greatest commandment, and like, is it producing fruit of the spirit in everyone involved? And if it isn't, then you need to rethink what you're doing, because it's it's not furthering your faith. Like it's not furthering what you believe is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, Sorry, I trailed off in my head. I forgot what I was responding to. No, it's just
It's out there somewhere.
but the fruit of the spirit thing. People are like, well, if it's of God, then what you're telling that person, or what you're trying to reinforce on the situation, like it should also produce that in the moment to some degree. If your thing is like, well, in the future, what I'm telling them to do, like not be gay or queer or whatever, like because that's a thing that you can just stop doing. Uh, they're like, well, that it sucks for them now, and maybe it sucks for the rest of their life, but it'll be good in their afterlife. It's like the fruit of the spirit was for now. There was no indication that it was for the afterlife. So produce fruit of the spirit them and facilitate receiving that from God according to the greatest commandment, then I think you have to seriously question it. So I think the biggest foil to a lot of things that Christians will put out there is the greatest commandment combined with the fruit of the spirit. And but the fruit of the spirit needs to have self-awareness and resiliency added to it, because those are both
Mm,
critical for mental and emotional well-being. Um,
yeah.
Now, all of the fruit of the spirit, I think, informs those, but I think it needs to be stated separately.
Yeah. Paul really dropped the ball on that one. Or
I
or whoever it was that wrote that. I don't remember if that was in one of the contested epistles or whatever. But yeah.
he wrote one of the ones that had a fruit of the spirit thing in it.
Yeah.
I think he did write
Sure.
the one that has the accepted list. There's one that just goes on forever with like tons of fruits of the spirit, and you're like, all right, this is just there's too much.
Like some of these are actually vegetables. Come on, Paul. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Paul was an asshole in real life.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty convinced of that. Yeah.
when he went and talked to the disciples who supposedly hung out with Jesus, and then he's like, they added nothing to what I understand, and you're like,
Like, even though they're the ones who actually hung out with Jesus, but I had a hallucination. So, like,
I mean,
so
vision. I mean,
which
I hated myself into a vision.
speaking of Paul, like, and things that we've seen on YouTube, I highly recommend if people are familiar with the channel Myth Vision.
Oh yeah.
He had 2 episodes recently where he was interviewing Rabbi Tovius. Tovius, I want to say Singer, but I don't know if that's his last name. A Jewish rabbi. Basically, the theme of the like 2-part episodes was just how wrong Paul was about.
Oh, Paul was riffing big time.
Yeah, it's
I'll,
it's pretty fantastic.
Paul's letters, it's like jazz apologetics. He was just improvising and
He's
making
just
shit up.
scatting.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was quoting things crazy out of context and just making stuff up based on Old
Yeah.
Testament things. And
Yeah, which because I want to do an episode or multiple
and
later.
he had that thorn in his side. Remember how we joked that like that thorn was Tiffany's prick?
Was who?
Did I say Tiffany? I
You
meant
did say
Timothy.
Tiffany. Like, hey,
Oh, maybe Timothy's trans. Maybe that's like how that's
yep,
maybe that's how he dressed up for Paul.
that's what he called him. Yeah,
he's like, I'm Tiffany. Shall I bake some bread for you? Maybe oil your feet.
which is great because feet is actually a euphemism.
Is it for what? Genitals?
Yeah.
Oh, they washed genitals.
Well,
Gee,
at least in the Old
the
Testament, I don't
disciple.
know if it was so much of a New Testament
All
thing,
right,
but
all right, but they didn't. But they didn't get specific, so maybe the apostles were like, Jesus, your genitals are filthy. Scrub a dub dub.
but what was I
Oh, and
saying?
the Bible, like not the Bible, the Christian like cheesy grace thing, rub a dub dub, thanks for the grub, and like rub a dub dub, huh?
You got to rub one out, huh? But
Jesus does come in power. It's in the Bible.
and also as we talked about before, he invites you to finger his holes.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
I don't even know what to do with that. That's like voyeurism and
It's in the Bible.
finger my holes for proof. You're
But speaking of the Bible, like this is something I want to do like one or multiple episodes about. Just what we think about the Bible because you obviously you can go on and on about it because like so you're as we were talking about like Paul just kind of riffing and bebopping and scatting with like how he treated like the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament or whatever. It's like so some people say, well, that was like I mean that's midrash. That's like the Jewish tradition. Like you're supposed to
kind of.
be like
Yeah.
endlessly interpreting it. So I understand that is like a Jewish tradition. But what I'm interested in, so if anyone watching knows, please let me know. So people say like, well, we're supposed to like be like constantly interpreting and reinterpreting scripture and finding all these different facets and meanings. But what I want to know is like when the people originally wrote it, was that their intention? Like when they were actually writing, like, I want this to be endlessly interpreted billions of ways, or did they have a specific meaning in mind? And if they found out what people are doing with their writings now, like, what would they think of that? I honestly don't know. I'd be curious to know.
I'm gonna
But
say that. I'm gonna assume that just on how hellbent the Israelites were on maintaining um, spiritual culture, that was a culture for a long time around writings. So maybe not all the writings in the Old Testament, but I'll bet a good portion of them the writers did expect, especially apocalyptic literature, because that stuff is vague. There,
yeah,
there probably was an expectation that it was going to be unpacked. Um,
okay.
The
That
New
makes sense.
Testament, though, because it was written um, almost definitely by Greek Hebrews, like people like Greek Jewish people, like they were living in Roman areas, and like Ju- Judaism was their religion, but not their culture exactly.
Hmm.
I'll, I think it would probably be harder to say that the New Testament writings were meant to be taken like in a midrash way,
Hmm.
because that may not have even been a part of their spiritual culture at that time in that area.
Right. Then our friend Keith here makes a point that's also good to keep in mind. I think different books have different meanings. The Bible
Yeah.
wasn't a Bible until it was put together. It simply means library. It's like, yes, I think that's
Yep.
something else I would definitely want to discuss when we talk about the Bible. Because, like, people will, yeah, it's like people don't understand that it's different books written by different people with different agendas, with different like meaning to get across different messages even because like when you view it as just this like monolithic this is the word of god, so it's like when one author says one thing but then like another author in a different book says something that seems to say something completely different if not flat out contradictory, like the usual Christian response is like, well, how do we reconcile these? Like, well, if this one said this but this one says something else and like one of them like obviously must not have meant what it looks like. They said like, no, like they meant what they said, and
Yeah.
the fact that they're saying different things is because they were saying different things. That's yeah.
They were
So
taking
yeah,
their best stab
definitely
at
Keith.
understanding the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my view. Yeah. I tell you what. After I stopped being a Christian, I started appreciating the Bible as literature way more, and
Yeah.
like the Gospels, especially Mark. I've I kind of like Mark a lot.
Yeah.
But
And I
there's
feel like I still honestly have like a lot of probably just have a lot of baggage around it, so I'm not quite there. I'm still at the point of it's like I don't care about the Bible, but
no. It probably was easier for me because
yeah,
I wasn't pressured into much. I grew up Catholic, but like I wasn't pressured into too much.
yeah,
But just the way that like Hellenistic mythology and logic and reasoning and Judaism and like Semitic culture, like the way that like all was like woven together in the Gospels, it's incredible. Like
mm,
it was
yeah,
definitely meant to be taken a number of ways.
hmm,
Um, yeah.
yeah. Which I will say, in the Bible's defense, this is something else. Probably have a future episode about things that atheists say, like about faith, particularly Christianity, that actually kind of pissed me off. Is like when a lot of atheists, when they talk about the Bible and particularly the authors of the Bible, they'll do things like call them a bunch of like ignorant savages and like a bunch of idiots who didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Like maybe compared to what we know now, but like at the time, like just the fact if you could write, that automatically put you like in upper tiers of society. Like these were the brightest people, and like you said, a lot of the books, even if you maybe think like the points they were trying to make or the truth they were trying to say was like the real truth is kind of bullshit, but like
Mhm.
their writing style, like the way they could like weave thoughts together, like the poetry, like it's technically like good writing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. These weren't.
Yeah.
You're right, and yeah, this wasn't the apostles.
Yeah.
If
But
if they even existed, because
mhm.
the meaning of their names in Hebrew adds a lot more depth to the stories. So, because like in Mark, I didn't go all the way through it yet, but I looked at it like, okay, it's like Jesus taught in parables. I was like, what if at least the first gospel that we have record of in the Bible, like what if that was a parable too? And so I looked through like just the meaning of names um, in the
Mhm.
situations they were in. There's like a lot
Yeah.
of depth, and it flows. Like it actually, there's like a symbolic narrative under the surface, and it. I was like, this isn't even like uh, I'm not having to like stitch things together here. This is making sense. I was like
Yeah.
So then at that time I was like, so Jesus was probably real, maybe not. But like the disciples and the apostles, like it looks it looks like they were probably real, but like just based on how well this flows, I don't even know if this was their names.
Yeah, that all just works too perfectly. But I will say real quick, like, so my friend Keith was apparently still watching. Like, dude, you're in England. It's like way past your bedtime. What the hell are you doing, man? And I'm trying to think like the time zone difference. So there, it's what about April now? Is that? I don't know how I don't know how time works, but yeah. But I mean, obviously, appreciate you sticking around. But
Yes.
yeah. Oh, but now apparently he's off. I guess he listened to me. Damn it.
Oh, I was about to say, tell your friends.
Oh, well, here he just commented. He's like, I'm looking after a homeless hostel in Preston. Well, good for you, man.
Homeless hostel sounds way better than a homeless shelter. That's what we have here.
Yeah, I don't know. Me and him were having a chat. We were talking about it earlier today, and some of the things he was saying about it is yeah, yeah, got 10 or so rough homeless sleepers on the street tonight. Oh,
Dang.
well, I mean, mad respect to you, man, for keeping watch over it, man. Appreciate you for multiple
Yeah,
reasons.
that's a whole other thing. I've seen some real ignorant shit said in this part of the world lately about homeless people.
Yeah, but anyway,
By the way,
so,
it tends to be cheaper and more effective to give homeless people money and give them the resources uh, to use it. Some people waste it. A lot of people who are homeless aren't homeless because they want to be. Go figure.
yeah, like
Some people are, but I would say it's because a mental health thing is in the way, causing them to want to be because the alternative, they can't cope with their mental illness.
but yeah, real quick, yeah,
Yeah.
our pleasure, Keith.
Yeah.
And thanks for being you out there doing your thing. Keep it up.
Yeah. I imagine in the UK that being you isn't always easy.
Yeah, but yeah, Keith has actually reached out and we'll see how to work it out with the time zone. But he's expressed interest in joining us on the show sometime. Obviously, love
Yeah.
to have you whenever we can work that out. We're still like we got a whole list of people we're wanting to have as guests on the show, but you're definitely on that list, dude. So yeah, we will let you know. But speaking of guests, I have an announcement to make about that. But first, if
Oh,
there's anything else you wanted to add about the topic of
no.
the
I just, I have, not saying like trans assholes don't exist, but I have yet to come across one. They seem to be wonderful people, as far as I can tell, and there are far fewer trans assholes than cisgender assholes, and
I
I
mean,
just
obviously by number, but I think by proportion, definitely.
oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, at this point,
Yeah.
I don't understand why we aren't why more people aren't like just teach us how to be human, trans people.
Yeah. We should put them in charge. Like, so Chris, if you're interested, like, I'll vote for you for whatever you're running for, or just,
Yeah.
yeah. If you just want to take over, I'll allow it. But,
Run for school board. That would be fun.
yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, Chris and Max for everything. But, yeah, yeah. So
I'll tell you
I
what,
guess like going,
Mad Tree Brewery in Cincinnati is queer affirming, absolutely.
Mhm.
And when I was hanging out there with Max, I did notice that like there was a different kind of look that Max got from people,
Hmm.
even in a place that is more affirming. At least,
Hmm.
at least the establishment is intentionally affirming and welcoming.
Hmm.
Um, so that kind of sucked. I was like, oh, this is likely one of like the big establishments that you could feel safer in, and there's still people giving looks. It's just like, that's it's
Yeah.
gonna. I feel like in general in this country, it's gonna get better before it's gonna get worse before it gets better. That was a Freudian slip. I hoped it got better. But I think it's gonna
Yeah.
get worse before it gets better. I really hope it doesn't get terrible for a long time.
Yeah.
By the numbers, it shouldn't. There aren't enough people who support it, but
Yeah. That's yeah. Yeah. Because like the conversations that I've had with like trans friends of mine, is like just the things that they deal with, whether it's like situations they like are actually dealing with, or just the constant, I don't know if you call it fear or anxiety, but just it's always like in the back of their minds, like just the fact that like when we go to hang out and they're like, okay, I feel safe at this place, I don't feel safe at that place. I'm like, just the fact that that's even like a thing that they have to work through. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I don't know if the people who are at those establishments or like whatever uh, if it's an establishment or just an area. I wonder if the people who are giving that impression know they're giving that impression.
Mm.
Uh, like if they were told that like in this location, part of town, whatever, like I don't feel safe here. Um, would they be aware that they're projecting that lack of safety?
Yeah, because I know like I've had, and you probably as well, like I've had interactions with people online who are like very like conservative Christian, like just putting out all these like messages or remarks or whatever that are very like transphobic, and but then when you bring up like, dude, like just so you know, like talking like this, like this is a big reason why the suicide rate in this community is like disproportionately high.
Well, they might
And then
say that, well, that's because their lifestyle is sinful and evil.
no, but I remember there was one interaction we had in particular, and he actually did like, oh, well, I would never want that to happen. Obviously, I don't want bad things to happen to anyone. I still care about them as people. It's like, well, then if that's the case, then shut the fuck up.
Or ask questions before
Yeah.
you assume you have answers.
Hmm. Yeah, that too. But yeah, but just going back to the whole, just as people, like we tend to fear what we don't understand. Like especially like in this day and age, like all kinds of information about this is so readily available.
Yeah.
And fortunately, at least in some areas, like people are feeling more comfortable like coming out as gay or trans or bi or queer or like all kinds of everything. Like which is, I mean, obviously the progress that's being made is great, but we're still not where we need to be. But I'll have to say, like, if the information is out there, so you don't, there really is not any excuse to be ignorant about this anymore.
At
It's
this
like if
point,
you fear what you don't understand, like everything is out there for you to understand it.
yeah. If I was to say, if you have access to the internet and you are ignorant by choice.
Hmm.
um, like the information is readily available more so than any other point in history, especially with trans biology information. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, because one of speaking of trans biology, one thing that I found out recently, I don't remember the specifics of it. I mean, people can look it up, but
oh wait,
but they
wait.
found
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but they found that because people talk about like, well, it's what body parts they have, like, because people more focus on the genitals, which again is like, why are all the conservatives always so focused on the genitals? But
Repression what?
mhm, mhm. But they found like with the transgender people, it's actually the way they're like certain very important like brain structures are. They actually match more with the gender that or the sex that they identify as
Yeah.
than what they were assigned with at birth. So when I ask, "Oh, you're saying it's all about their body," and like, so when it comes to like someone's identity and like who they are as a person, what's more important, their brain or their crotch, as far as like who they really are? Like, I mean, if you're gonna have to, I mean, not that I think you necessarily need to label one, but I mean, I would go with the brain, but again, like
Yeah.
what it really comes down to is like when someone like comes up to me like as we were talking about earlier, like all the different ways that people will come up and identify themselves. It's like if someone tells me they're a Christian, I say, okay, you're a Christian. Someone tells me their name's Gary, okay, your name's Gary. I don't check their birth certificate. I don't see what name they were assigned at birth. I go with how they're presenting themselves to me right now. I say, okay, that's how I will address you.
Funny thing, you should talk about birth certificates. In some states, and I think Ohio might have been one of them, they are trying to require trans people to get a stamp or something like an additional label on their birth certificate that says that they are trans. Because previously, according to I think it was a national law where you could get your birth certificate adjusted to show the gender that you currently are on your birth certificate. Um, but these laws would require your gender at birth to be recorded on there, and a special pink triangle equivalent of a stamp or something on your birth certificate, and then require birth certificates for more things, like more jobs, more. So basically, officially stigmatize people, and then require that stigma to be shown to more people.
Why?
I don't know how people don't see this as fascist. like I don't get it. Dude, I'll tell you that the prayer tent, the mash thing that we were involved in, it's
Mhm.
religio fascist. It's like it is a course in introduction to religio fascism. Like it has helpful aspects, right? But if
Mhm.
you continue it to its logical conclusion, it becomes religio fascism. Like
Ooh.
the patriarchy and all of the reinforcement things. Now, some of the spiritual things, I think there probably is like a biological, like scientific component to some of the things that happened there. And so
Well, yeah.
I'm not going genetic fallacy with it, saying that like anything that happened is like ruined and tainted. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Right,
Like that,
right.
like facts are facts. And so if there was factual things happening like that, it's independent of of the artificial framework. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was just reflecting on that today, and I'm like, shit. You know what? If there's a lot of parallels between that and the fascist world and Handmaid's Tale. Uh,
And that sounds like something I would love to unpack further. We could do a whole episode on that, or several, probably.
I'm so torn on because there are some genuinely good people in there,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
uh, doing good things in there, and there's another layer.
Yeah, which, but again, like I think it's one of those things. Like I don't necessarily think you need to be torn on. Like kind of ties into like the larger discussion we're having tonight. Like you don't need to look at it as a binary thing.
That's
Like
true.
you don't need to label it good or bad. I think,
Yeah,
yeah, it's important to look at it and say, okay, here's the things that it's doing that are genuinely helpful. But then here's the things that it's doing that are just genuinely fucked up.
Yeah. I'll say there were more genuinely good things that are happening, more genuinely good people.
Mhm.
There were some people who didn't know they were autistic. Ben Shapiro, what? And people who didn't know they were being assholes. Had they known that, they would like not want to be, like desperately not
Yeah.
want to be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm still gonna try to hang out with a few of the people. See how that goes. I
That's
don't
good.
know. If I'm myself in the interaction, we'll see how that goes. Like maybe I'm too much of a threat. It's like, oh, your God is so weak. Like I'm a threat. My goodness, you flatter me.
It's like, oh, stop.
I don't know. Sing my praises, I guess.
All right. Well, anything else for this evening before we sign
No.
off and
Uh,
announce what's exciting about next week?
what is exciting about? Oh yeah.
So next week, excited to announce that we'll have our very second guest. That sounded better in my head. But yeah, so next week, very excited to welcome a good friend and big reason we're even doing this show in the first place, Derek Day, as some of you may or may not be familiar with. Super excited to have him on. Awesome dude with an awesome story.
I haven't never had a
Um,
real conversation with him that wasn't
yeah,
about like nuts and bolts for starting this.
yeah. So this will, yeah, this will be good. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Yeah, like I said, yeah, so many things I appreciate about the dude. It's like, yeah, as see, Keith knows what's up. That man is a legend.
On my end, we lost like the little graphic thing with the text. Are you still seeing the graphic?
I still see it. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, he does.
yeah. Goes hard in the paint. So yeah, so so tune in next week for that. But yeah, be kind of talking about probably things like because like Derek, also fellow atheist, but former minister, preacher.
And he's an author, speaker,
Mm-hmm.
podcast personality.
Oh yeah, you can catch him on. He does a show on Fridays with another friend of ours, another guy we want to have on the show sometime. So if you're watching, looking for you, Aaron Tomlinson. They do a show called Freeology Friday right here on Facebook and YouTube. Highly recommend that.
Yeah,
And then Derek,
he was on some older episodes of Heretic Happy Hour.
yeah, he was one of the hosts there. That's where we first became familiar with him, and I first like got connected with him through the Facebook group associated with that podcast. And yeah, guy I'm proud to call a friend, and looking forward to having him on next week. And so yeah, come back for that. All right. Any other words for the people this evening?
May your things and stuff be forever with your people.
Yep, and amen. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for people for hanging out. It was good to have some interaction back in the comments again. But yeah, obviously, if you're watching this later, you still feel free to leave some comments, start some conversation. We'll be sure to keep an eye on those and respond as we can. And but yeah, until next week, thanks again. Have a good night.